through the chat box to help you to the best of our capacity. All right, so our participants have tuned in. Our lovely panelists are here with us. But before we dive into a conversation with them, we wanted to lay the foundation on why zero waste systems are needed, what it takes to pull the lever, and what does it look around the world, featuring some of our members' work. So GAIA has prepared a short video that we are unveiling publicly today for the first time here on in this event with all of you. So presenting our video, this is Zero Waste, on a count of 3, 2, 1.
We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. Imagine handing them a world without waste. In our journey towards a sustainable future, focusing solely on individual action might feel like trying to empty the ocean with a teaspoon. To make a real difference, we must tackle the roots of the problem in a big and grand way. To be exact, the systems that shape the way we produce, consume, relate with nature, and with each other as a society. Let's be honest, our current systems are designed for disposability, not sustainability. They prioritize short-term convenience and profit over the long-term health of our planet. Take food waste as an example. Current statistics show that we produce 1.3 billion tons of food waste annually around the world. This amounts to about 8 to 10% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. To put this into perspective, this will be 8 times of Mount Everest made entirely out of uneaten food. That is a lot of food waste and a huge climate threat. One thing is for sure, we need new systems. It is time to invest in zero waste and stop burning money on polluting industries like waste incineration, gasification, pyrolysis, and chemical recycling. Effective systemic change involves redesigning our economies to function within nature's limits and people's well-being. In many parts around the world, this means reducing resource consumption. And for all goods that we really need, creating systems where every product can be repurposed, recycled, or composted so that nothing is wasted. These zero waste models will bring us closer to a waste-free, sustainable, and a just future for all. This sounds like a beautiful vision, I know, but you might be asking yourself, how should we start to change these rigid old systems? This transition goes beyond individual behavior change. It requires our governments and businesses to redesign our economy to be zero waste. We need policy changes that effectively drive zero waste and enables local ecosystems to safely recycle, reuse, and compost all discards. Policies that put people at the center of this transition to align with environmental and social justice. This sounds like an ambitious plan, but is there any evidence that these strategies are already working? Yes.
In the Ashanti region, specifically Edubiasi, GAIA is able to collect 90% of organic waste from the households. Organic waste is very important to us because they serve as the major contributor of greenhouse gases when they are sent to landfills, which is the normal practice done by assembly officials.
The best part, solutions like these not only reduce waste, they revitalize local economies. Zero waste systems create 200 times more jobs than our old disposal system. And it doesn't stop there. These practices create better jobs that go beyond basic labor, provide higher wages, and offer permanent positions and improve quality of life. Are you still unsure if these strategies can be implemented on a larger scale? Let's take a look at success stories of zero waste on a municipality level. Trivandrum in India was able to bring down their waste to 150 tons per day through the implementation of green protocols, public campaigns, and a ban on single-use plastics. Or Santa Juana in Chile.
La motivación del municipio fue disminuir el traslado de residuos a relleno sanitario. También una motivación fue enseñar a la gente educación ambiental para que pudieran separar sus residuos en sus casas y el municipio poder trasladarlo a la planta y tratarlos. Y también fue el disminuir los gases de efecto invernadero que estaban provocando también y están provocando el calentamiento global y el cambio climático.
Those cities are showing us that systems change is not only effective, but achievable. The solutions are there. Now it's up to us to advocate for them and apply them globally. For our planet, for our children, for a future where waste does not exist. Because we don't just inherit the earth from our ancestors, we are borrowing it from our children. And we need to return it in a better shape than we found it.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did like, please use the reaction button to show some love for this video. So the UN Day is yet another shining example of how zero waste has captured the attention of communities, policymakers, finance institutions, as well as climate experts. At COP28, leaders pledged $10 billion to tackle waste methane emissions, and there are over 400 zero waste cities in Europe alone and mega cities in Asia and Africa that have advanced zero waste strategies and have cut waste by up to 80%. It's clear that momentum around zero waste is growing. But the question is, will it keep pace with the urgency of the problem we face? How do leaders turn this momentum into action to rapidly scale zero waste systems at the pace we require them to? So now, let me take this opportunity to introduce our esteemed panelists. So we have Charlotte Sulary. Charlotte is Zero Waste France Advocacy Manager. She is following closely the implementation of France's anti-waste law and is advocating for more ambitious plastic reduction policies, in particular in the packaging and textile sectors. Welcome, Charlotte. Next, we have Francesca Calisasi. Since 2018, Francesca works with UN Habitat, assisting local governments and waste stakeholders with technical advice, knowledge, and capacity building to improve on their municipal solid waste system and transit towards a circular economy. Welcome, Francesca. Third, we have Mahmoud Mussa, who is the mayor of Zanzibar City Council, championing Zanzibar to be the first zero waste archipelago in the world. Welcome, sir. Next, we have Manjot. Manjot is at Global Methane Hub and is responsible for driving the Asia strategy for methane reduction across waste, agriculture, and energy sector. She acts as a technical expert to the UNFCCC campaign Race to Zero and is a senior fellow at the University of Maryland Center for Global Sustainability at the School of Public Policy. Last but not the least, we have Tricia Farelli. Professor Tricia is the coordinator of more than 300-strong scientists coalition for an effective plastic treaty and an honorary fellow of Massey University, New Zealand. We welcome all of you. So without any further ado, let's dive in straight to the question answer. All right. So my first question would be to you, Francesca. So the UN declaration, UN declaring March 30 as International Zero Waste Day has clearly marked the urgency of putting zero waste high on environmental as well as political agenda. So can you share with us why it is important to transition to zero waste and how UN Habitat is working with governments as well as other stakeholders in this regard?
Yeah. Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for inviting UN Habitat to join to this interesting and relevant session. I think that this resolution for the establishment of an international day on zero waste is absolutely timing. We everyone knows that we are witnessing, we are living a global waste crisis. We have more than 2.3 billion tons of municipal solid waste management generated every year. And out of all this waste that is generated, we know that only 84% gets collected and only 61% is managed in controlled facilities, meaning that a lot of people still do not receive waste management collection systems, and a lot of people still rely on unsustainable disposal facilities like open dump sites or unsustainable practices like open burn of waste. And this, of course, is causing like pollution, threatening human health, animals' health, the ecosystems, which has, of course, a negative effect on everyone, on our planet, our health, our economy. So it's really relevant to put importance at a global level to make sure that solid waste management is prioritized in national and local governments' agenda, but also in the other stakeholders' agenda, like producers and consumers. So as UN Habitat, we work with stakeholders, and especially our main partners are local and national governments. We use this approach, which is called from data to action, and that we usually apply the Waste-Wise Cities tool, an assessment tool based on the SDG indicator 1161, for which UN Habitat is custodian agency, and based on the data collected, evidences, and stakeholders consultation, including private sector, public, informal sector, we define the interventions that can address the policy, infrastructure, and financial gaps of a city municipal solid waste management. For example, we used this approach in Mombasa. So we applied our tool, then the county developed the policy, and now they are implementing together with the European Investment Bank a feasibility study for 20 million euros investments to set up infrastructures and other systems to address these the identified challenges. And we do this one also by working through our Waste-Wise Cities and African Clean Cities platform programs. And I invite cities and local governments, if they're here, to join us. I'll also share the link. And last, UN Habitat, together with UNEP, is also being is functioning as secretariat to the United Nations Secretary General on zero waste that was established also through the resolution passed by the United Nations General Assembly. And through this one, we especially facilitate, with the work of the advisory board, awareness, sharing knowledge and experience, which is also another important element for progressing towards circular economy, towards zero waste. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very helpful. So we will be dropping the link of the Waste-Wise tool that Francisca was mentioning about. It's a tool which would help cities to define what the challenges are, and then move towards what kind of infrastructure the cities can build, or what should the policies be looking like, and so on. So thank you so much, Francisca, for sharing that. And of course, UN Habitat together with UNEP is the secretariat for UN Zero Waste Days. So over the last 2 years, they've been actively involved in spreading awareness on what zero waste is all about. So thank you once again. I would like to now direct my question to Mayor of Zanzibar. As you all heard from my introduction previously, Zanzibar recently announced, the first zero waste archipelago, and it's as we see that cities and communities are still struggling. here is a great example of how such kind of island is also moving towards zero waste. Sir Mayor, I have this question that, what led you to start this journey of zero waste? Can you tell us more why you took this decision and how becoming zero waste will benefit Zanzibar? Over to you. Sir, you will have to unmute yourself, or we can't hear you.
You mute, it's okay. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Zanzibar is a part and parcel of United Republic of Tanzania. We have been starting to join in zero waste in Zanzibar over here because of the announcement of our president, new president, Dr. Hussein Ali Hassan Mwinyi. Since he started to become a president of Tanzania Zanzibar here, he announced he is not satisfied for the situation of the dirty of the city. That's why he gave us some work to do. And after to sit down with our friends from Tanzania mainland there, we found Madam Anna. Madam Anna, she's the lady who is working with Nipe Fagio in Dar es Salaam there. And after long discussion and long time to sit down together, we get finally to help each other. And Madam Anna, she took me to go to visit so many places just to see how the people doing. And one among the journey which I go through Madam Anna is Filipino. When I reach Filipino there, I saw the people how they are doing to make sure their city are clean and nice one. After to see that things, I come back to Zanzibar here. I act on behalf of Nipe Fagio, and we start to clean our city through the study which we receive from Nipe Fagio and the Philippines people also. Now, in our progress over here, we have been starting to build the one station stop center of the collecting the waste, and that place has been calling Chumbuni area. We have been starting with Chumbuni area, and now we are in initiative to make sure we are going to prepare another 6th section of collecting point in our city in Zanzibar, urban and west. That is the way how we have been starting. We're starting the way to make it, we're starting to join with Nipe Fagio and this zero waste project because we want to clean our city and to make sure Zanzibar is coming to be clean. And I promise you, in 2 years time, I know the Zanzibar urban and west region will change and to become Zanzibar zero waste. That's the way how we plan and how we did.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you
you
are
too.
such an inspiration to many other mayors and local government leaders out there in the world. Because what you have shared with us, once you got inspired, you decided to take this journey in your own island, and you are now committed to doing this in the next 2 years. So, we salute your commitment, and we hope that we have many such more, governments, local government leaders who can also champion zero waste in their respective cities and communities. Thank you so much.
You are welcome.
So we talk about waste, and one of the largest percentage of waste, especially in Global South, is organic waste. So my next question is to Dr. Manjot. Global Methane Hub and other institutions are working to fund and support climate funding to just methane reduction initiatives in the waste sector. So can you tell us more about, where the climate funding in the waste sector is going, and your perspective on the importance of funding zero waste initiatives, especially on organics management in the first place? So over to you, Dr. Manjot.
Thanks so much, Ambili, and thanks to GAIA for the invitation and to my esteemed panelists to be a part of this wonderful event. I would first like to start by, just sharing a little bit about the Global Methane Hub. It's a pooled philanthropic fund which was set up in February 2022 with a goal to work with national and subnational governments, civil society organizations, academia, to help mitigate methane emissions across all three major sectors of anthropogenic or human-caused methane emissions, that is waste, agriculture, and energy sectors. And we were also created not just to deliver on the climate benefits, but as we will probably uncover in this conversation, the core benefits of livelihoods, productivity, public health, and environmental justice. And as the Global Methane Hub, we are headquartered in Chile, in South America. We work largely in the global south because as projected, 83% increase of methane emissions by 2050 will be from low and middle income countries due to rise in GDP and population. So that's definitely a case for action for us. Before I go into funding or the lag thereof into methane mitigation, especially for the waste sector, just want to quickly lay out the state of play for waste emissions. So they're the third largest source of methane emissions after agriculture and energy. However, more than the agriculture sector, waste sector breakthroughs or technologies have a very high mitigation potential. Therefore, it is important to actually invest in waste sector emissions because that will really give us the benefits we want to see by 2030. According to a World Bank water waste report, the total quantity of waste generated from low and middle income countries is also expected to increase by more than 3 times by 2050. And in terms of regions, the fastest growing regions for this issue in the waste sector would be the Sub-Saharan African region, South Asia, Middle East, and North Africa, where total waste is expected to nearly triple, double, and double respectively in these regions. And as we know, in these regions, more than half of the waste, as we heard before, is currently open dumped, and the trajectories of waste growth will have vast implications, not just for the environment, but of course, public health. Now, with all of this magnitude of the problem, the unfortunate piece is that the current funding levels are not matching the enormity and the urgency. So according to a 2023 CPI report, Climate Policy Institute, this was supported by Global Methane Hub, we were tracking climate finance into methane mitigation, and within that, into various sectors and regions. So what we found and what the report found is that less than 2% of the tracked climate finance actually goes into methane mitigation. So anyway, out of the less funding going to climate, less than 2% is going to methane mitigation. We also have seen that over the years, yes, definitely methane abatement finance has increased 18% compared to 2019-2020 levels. However, what's important to know is that the current levels for finance remain significantly below the global estimated needs of approximately $48 billion annually by 2030, which means where we stand right now, annual flows must increase substantially by at least 3.5 times by 2030. So this means a call to action for the finance sector, for everyone to really mobilize the climate finance. The report also showed that methane abatement finance does not flow proportionally to sectors and regions with the highest abatement potential, as we were discussing. So after the ag sector, the waste sector accounted for 45% of the finance, but it's driven mainly by wastewater management and solid waste to energy investment, which in itself is problematic, which we can talk about in the conversation. And not just in terms of the sector and the subsector, when we look at regions, the top 3 recipient regions of methane abatement finance are East Asia and the Pacific, US and Canada, and Western Europe, which mainly shows that where the issues are or where the projected emissions are, finance is not just going into those subsectors, but it's not even reaching the regions like Latin America and South Asia, which are responsible for 26% of global methane emissions. This is across sector. And they are receiving only like 1.8 to 1.3% of this methane finance. So this really discrepancy underscores a notable gap needed, not just for the sectors and the subsectors, such as waste, but also for funding in these regions. So at GMH, Global Methane Hub, this is where we come in. We provide catalytic funding, grow the pie of finance for methane, but also shift the funding, right? From incineration, from waste to energy, to really following a hierarchy that we are aware of in our fields. where the first order of principle is preventing the food waste, then reusing it through banking, food banking, composting, feeding animals, segregating, and the last resort is landfill management and the other technologies that we need to use to manage the waste that cannot follow the composting and the other hierarchies and the uses that we want to see. We are also working with stakeholders in the global south, including India, Indonesia, China, Philippines, in Asia specifically, also Latin America and Africa. And we have a target in the waste sector to reduce waste sector methane emissions at least 35% by 2030. And this is a 1.5C aligned target. So that's how we are going for that. We are working with partners such as GAIA, and we are working on various countries, as I noted above. And the areas of our work are, we are supporting investment on better data and MRV, because that's in, updating inventories for waste is a big need of the hour. We are also working at influencing policy plans and regulations. As many of you and the speakers ahead of me noted, it's very important to make a difference at the national and sub-national level. We also work on facilitating project preparation facilities, which are basically a financial model to help cities design feasibility models that can be funded through other sources of funding as well. And again, we try to drive catalytic finance and investment by providing some kind of a facility to do blended financing, because we need to not just increase the level of funding, but the type of funders who come to the table. Right now, a lot of funding is still coming from private sector. We want to increase it to get governments use their creative ways to use their existing funding and schemes and missions, as well as, of course, the development finance institutions is where we want to get more funding channeled in this. So I'll end here, but looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Wow, that was a lot to process. So give me a moment. So thank you so much, Dr. Manjot, for sharing all these insights, especially linking waste with the climate issue, where you mentioned that waste is the third largest anthropogenic source of methane emissions. And there is a huge mitigation potential, which is mostly untapped, and how the current financing is not matching the enormity of the problem, and what GMH, or Global Methane Hub, is doing to solve this problem through supporting data, increasing financing, both from the financing private sector as well as government. So this is great because over the time, as plastic waste became, a more central problem, organic waste was not seen as an issue. However, by linking this to a climate problem, I think it's time that we bring light to the problem, that even if organic waste is well managed based on the hierarchy, that if we reduce, reuse, compost our organic waste, a big chunk of our methane emissions can be managed, and of course it solves the waste problem. So thank you for throwing light on that issue. So moving from organic waste, yes, everyone's favorite problem, the plastic issue, right? We cannot not discuss waste without touching upon plastic. So my question is for Professor Tricia. So one of the key aspects, especially at GAIA, that we advocate for when we talk about zero waste, that zero waste is not just about focusing on downstream, but we also need to prioritize upstream, that is production cuts, right? And especially in the case of plastic, it's an ongoing issue under the plastic treaty negotiations that's happening. So as part of a scientist coalition, how do you think a strong plastic treaty, which would be focused on plastic reduction, can actually accelerate the ambition of zero waste globally?
Thanks, Emily. So just a bit of background first. I don't know if those who are watching are aware, but there were two studies that were published in Science in 2020, and they found that because plastic degrades really slowly, and because plastics as a material and a complex mixture of chemicals are really persistent, all the plastics ever produced, even if we make really significant improvements systemically really too in terms of waste management and removal technologies, those huge quantities of plastics will still accumulate in the environment. So improving the circularity of plastics and optimizing waste management and removal technologies, well, they're essential, but on their own, they're really not going to end plastic pollution. And so what's needed are global and national plastics reduction targets aimed at significantly reducing primary plastics production. So some of our coalition scientists estimate that even with an annual globally aggregated primary plastic production reduction target, and those are when I talk about primarily plastic polymers, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about plastic production reduction. And this is the definition of that is provided in our revised zero draft. We define these as plastic materials made of synthetic and semi-synthetic polymers that are used for the first time, so virgin plastics, to create plastic products in any form. So what our coalition scientists estimate is that even with annual globally aggregated primary plastic production reduction targets of 2.35% starting in 2025, global plastic production pollution, will continue to increase. So what this means is that whatever global plastic production reduction target we may set will have to be really ambitious, have to be mandated and non-regressive if we're really going to end plastic pollution. So as I mentioned before, the Scientist Coalition recently released its response to the Global Plastics Treaty revised zero draft. And in that response, we emphasise that that's really needed. We need to have those ambitious plastic polymer reduction baselines and also targets. We also emphasise that the need for plastics producers to disclose their data, including chemical content and their production and consumption volumes. And those effective time-bound targets I mentioned are really dependent on our access to this kind of information. We don't have this information yet, which makes this job virtually impossible. We're also recommending assessment criteria that enable the assessment of plastics chemicals, polymers, products, technologies, systems, and services. And we recommend that the following criteria are designed to assess, that the criteria are designed to assess all of these items. And the criteria are sustainability criteria, safety criteria, which apply a hazards-based approach, essentiality and transparency criteria. And many people might be wondering what is essentiality criteria, and that, for example, ensures that an item's use is essential for health, for safety, or it must be critical for the functioning of society, and there are no available technically and economically feasible alternatives. Otherwise, those items, whether it's chemicals or polymers or whatever, shouldn't be produced. And these criteria I mentioned in the assessments of those items are needed to effectively guide the development and implementation of the reduction targets that I've mentioned, so the plastic production reduction targets. Taking a start and strengthen approach, plastics chemicals used in primary plastic polymers that are already identified in other multilateral environmental agreements should be prioritised. And likewise with polymers already identified as the most hazardous polymers as well. And finally, learning from other multilateral environmental agreements, we stress the importance of globally defined targets while avoiding ineffective, voluntary, nationally determined commitments alone. So in summary, we report a time-bound, international, legally binding primary plastic polymer reduction target and supportive national primary plastic polymer reduction targets, and ambitious global plastics reduction targets that are guided by safety, sustainability, transparency, and essentiality. And this will ensure that systems and materials are also safer and more sustainable throughout the full life cycle of plastics. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. This is great. If I may summarize what you just said, the need for a time-bound, legally binding plastic treaty is very important because, as you mentioned, plastic is also a polymer, right? And what we are trying to see is that we need to have cuts on these problematic polymers, which are not good for our health, for our environment, and so on. And if we have a strong legally binding treaty, hopefully we would not have the problematic plastics that pollutes our land, water, and our other ecosystems. So having this treaty would definitely ensure that the waste that we as producers, consumers generate would significantly reduce, and everything could be well managed. So I really hope that we would work towards a strong treaty by the end of this year. So best wishes to everyone working towards it. And now, last but not the least, I would like to ask our last panelist from Zero Waste France. So Zero Waste France is a member of GAIA Zero Waste Europe. And if some of you may know that, there's a lot of interventions happening at the upstream in Europe, and specifically in France also, like, bans to single-use plastic, a lot of support towards reuse systems. So I would like to understand from you, Charlotte, that, how is France actually translating these waste reduction policies to practice? Because there are many countries which are not even there. They don't even have good policies. And France not just have good policies, but, they're already in the action mode. So, how is the country doing it, in your opinion? What could be improved? And can you throw some light on, what could be some of the mechanisms for these policies to meet our environmental and social justice goals?
Good morning, afternoon, everyone, and thanks for inviting me. So some emblematic measures were implemented in France thanks to our anti-waste law in 2020. And I want to say that the first lesson we have learned is please make the law very precise, and the way it is written will determine the way it is implemented after. A few words about what our law says. First, it sets a target of ending the marketing of single-use plastic packaging by 2040, with some major milestones put in the law as well. A general objective of 15% reduction of residual household waste, and a 50% reduction in single-use plastic bottles by 2030. So this is quite ambitious. The law also aims to eliminate some single-use plastic products and packaging. For example, plastic packaging is banned for most fruits and vegetables. On-site food services have to provide food and beverages in reusable containers. And public access buildings cannot freely distribute plastic water bottles, and they must be equipped with water fountains. The law also requires cities to generalize sorting at the source of organic waste to ensure it's put back to the soils and not sent to incinerators or landfills, and many other measures such as the generalization of the extended producer's responsibility and some consumers' information measures. What we see 4 years after is that this very ambitious and pioneering text has not kept all its promises. We still see an endless growth of our waste production, and we think it's a striking symptom of the failure of this law so far. The way we analyze it is, I will have three main observations. The first is that the regulatory texts to ensure application of the law have often led to the text being less ambitious due to recurring pressure exerted by economic actors. The law has constantly been attacked by economic players from the beginning until now, and many provisions of the law were the subject of intense lobbying by producers when the decrees have been written. It harms the effectiveness of the law and significantly reduces the impact. For just one example, the ban of the sale of fresh fruits and vegetables in plastic have been reduced through 29 exemptions, including mushrooms, endives, carrots, or early potatoes, for which the risk of deterioration without packaging is definitely not proven, but still the lobbying worked. The second main thing for us is that there was a lack of exercise by the authorities of their power of control and sanction. And we've seen massive and repeated breaches. So it largely calls into question the achievements of the text in practice. And we think the law is not enough controlled. The way also sanctions are put in the law are very important. And then the last thing for us is that some key measures are still missing. They were discussed, debated hardly, but we didn't have them in the law, and now that's where we see that it's not working well. One of them is the implementation of a reuse return system. It is not in the law at the moment, it's just voluntary. And so we don't have the infrastructure to really implement it in all the country and make reuse really work, be generalized. But also, and this is even more important, the law has set the objective of improving production, but we think better producing today means producing less. It means really reducing production at the source to avoid it even becomes waste. And it is really true in the packaging and the textile industries. We've seen a lot of fast fashion trends happening the last 10 years and even growing the last 3 years in France and in Europe. Today, we think that this production sector should be put in accordance with the Paris Agreement, the climate objectives of the 1.5% greenhouse gas emissions. So to do that, we call for adoption of trajectories in each sector for reducing the goods placed on the market and penalizing overproduction practices such as overpackaging or fast fashion. This is actually a debate that is happening at the moment. We just have a law proposal being voted by the National Assembly on fast fashion, which will financially penalize the ultra fast fashion. So we are optimistic that it can, our first law of 2020 can be improved thanks to that kind of measures. Yeah, the main lesson for us is really make sure the law is written well so it can be implemented with the same level of ambition as what was voted, and make sure decision makers really use their powers of control and sanction. Otherwise, producers won't respect and abide by the law.
Thank you so much. What you're emphasizing is that, of course, we need good laws, but we also need to ensure that they are written well, so that we can hold producers accountable. The implementation can happen with the same ambition with which the law was written in the first place. So thank you so much for sharing that, because as much as important is to have a good law, we also need to ensure that it is put into practice. So now we have finished our moderator-led conversation. I would like to now open the floor to the audience. If you have any burning question that you would like to ask one of our panelists, please use our Q&A section to put in your questions. We'll be going through the Q&A section to ask the question to the concerned panelist. And if you really like to, speak up, please let us know, and we will unmute you so that you can directly ask the question. So in the meanwhile, while we are going through the questions that are put on the Q&A board, we have a question, or rather a quick poll for the audience. So my team would be sharing a quick poll wherein we really would like to understand from you, based on what you heard from our panelists, that what do you think is the greatest hurdle that we need to overcome in order to scale zero waste globally. So the poll would be live in a couple of moments, and please give us some time while we go through the questions on the Q&A board. So the question is, you can see the question is flashing on the screen. Please take a moment to include your answer. And if you think your answer is not there in one of the options, please use the chat function to write your answer. So we have one question here. Let me see. Charlotte, maybe I would like to ask you this question first, and then maybe I'll go to some other panelists so that they can share their opinion on it. So one of the attendees has asked that what are the programs you are putting in place to address plastic waste in your city? So Charlotte, I would like to start with you and then maybe pass on the mic to somebody else. Are you able to see the question? Do you want me to repeat?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, for us, the first thing is to avoid plastic waste in the first place. And in cities, there are lots that can be done to promote reuse, in particular reuse in packaging. As I mentioned, in France, the law now say that on-site food services have to provide food and beverages in reusable containers. And for us, we've seen how much, in particular in fast foods, the use of plastics is just so, it's not just fast food, it's fast overproduction of plastic waste in that kind of restaurants. So this is key, and it can be done in a city. Of course, it's much better if it's done at the national level, but you can try and start this in a city. It also creates jobs. Just want to mention that it's even if I'm pessimistic about the way we implement the law in France, we've seen in 2020 many companies were created because there was the strong signal by the law that they can create, there is a business to be created on reuse, on waste reduction, etc. And this is happening at the local level very often. You will have small businesses being created to start reuse packaging infrastructure, logistics, in food, in beverages, in everything. And then it's local councillors to help them start the thing, experiment the thing. And after that, when the waste is produced, well, of course, it has to be collected and rightly collected, and it has to be customary for everyone to collect this plastic waste separately. In France, it is packaging waste that is collected separately, and it's also in order to implement it everywhere, but same, the role of local councillors is key in that.
Thank you. So Charlotte, if you can answer, no, I think you have answered the question that was being asked, so I'm fine. Francisca, maybe if you would like to add a couple of points and maybe limit your answer in 2 minutes as to based on your programs on waste-wise cities, what are those some of the ways that you address the plastic waste, especially in the cities that you work with?
Thank you. Again, like our work really starts a lot from data. So when we apply our tool, the Waste Wise Cities tool, we also apply another a tool which is called waste flow diagram, which specifically looks at plastic waste because we know it's so polluting and negatively impacting, and we are able to estimate plastic leakages from the solid waste management system of a city. For example, we had in Lagos, we had like 20 kilos of plastic leakages entering the environment every year. Sorry, entering body water every year. And through like observation stakeholders workshop, we realized that this was a lot connected with the culture of takeaway. All the takeaway comes in like styrofoam plastic type. And then, so what the state of Lagos decided to do is develop a policy to ban the use of these type of packaging and look for alternatives. And also here, like now I see there was a lot of complaints and lobbying from the sellers of takeaway food because of the economic impact, and the producers the same way, like our colleague from Zero Waste France was mentioning. But I think data, understanding the source of the plastic leakages and then introducing the policy is very key. And also together with like extended producer responsibilities, I think it's important to really tackle the production. We can't produce the way we do it now and with the same system extracting, producing for disposal. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I see a lot of questions around plastic, but and they are really very interesting questions. But I just want to, give the mic to some other panelists. And this is a question from me. And Dr. Manju, this question is for you because you did mention about the benefits of adopting zero waste, right? So would you like to highlight as to, what are the other benefits apart from the visible change that we see in terms of cleanliness or what we just talked about, methane mitigation? What are the other benefits of actually going zero waste?
Sure, happy to quickly touch upon that. We are working at the intersection of not just methane mitigation, but also public health and better livelihoods. There was, in the video, there was a mention that, and also like Charlotte, I think you touched upon it, that this is also going to create jobs and not just improve lives, but livelihoods through better environmental justice principles embedded in local policies and regulations. So what we're doing with GAIA and organizations like ISWA and other partners is that we have helped to integrate environmental justice principles and send those kind of approaches into public policies. We've been able to reach over 100 NGOs and public institutions across 10 countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And what we're doing is not just working at the policy level, but also at the waste picker and waste collector level. So in Delhi, for example, we are working not just with the municipality of Delhi, but also with the waste pickers so that they are able to have not just the right kind of education that they can give to the households for better segregation, but also really institutionalizing them and calling them public health workers and not waste pickers per se. And also making sure that the wages they're getting are fair wages. So we are working on pushing that as policy with the Delhi government, and also then at the household level, better segregation. So what all these aspects will do is really create the core benefits that we talk about, better livelihoods, but better public health, all nested in the principles of environmental justice. So, I mean, those are the immediate benefits that you're seeing in addition to the methane or the climate benefits, which we are working on today. So just wanted to highlight those very quickly.
Thank you so much. I see a lot of questions on the Q&A box. Unfortunately, we do not have time to address all of them, but please be assured that we will be going through each and every question, getting the answers from our esteemed panelists, and we will be sending out answers to the questions that you've asked, in addition to the recording of this webinar and other relevant links that were shared on the chat box. So I think this is the time that I'll have to close the webinar. And as we come to the end of the webinar, I would like to extend a heartfelt thanks to our panelists for sharing their insights and expertise with us today. Your contributions have made this webinar truly valuable. I also want to thank each one of you, the participants, for your active participation. I saw, many of you participating in the poll, sharing your questions. So as mentioned earlier, we'll be following up with a recording with all the relevant links and answers to the questions that you've asked today. And before you all leave, we have two asks for you. You saw the video that we shared earlier. We plan to make it live on the 30th March, which is the International Zero Waste Day. So we'll be sending the link of the YouTube on the chat box. So click on the bell icon, and so that you will be notified as soon as the video goes live. And then you can share widely in your network. So that's the first ask that we have. Please click on the link, click on the bell icon so that you're notified, and you can use that video for your own advocacy and education programs. Next is we have an International Zero Waste City Conference upcoming in month of July in Tanzania. This conference is hosted by GAIA and GAIA local member Nipafagio. And together we'll be bringing zero waste practitioners, financial institutes, philanthropic organizations, with the agenda to learn best practices across the world on zero waste. And the IZWCC, or International Zero Waste City Conference, was first launched in Asia Pacific, and in 2023, the baton was passed to GAIA Africa region, primarily to signify the spirit of cross-regional exchange that forms the bedrock of this conference. So if you are interested in this conference, we will be dropping the link of the landing page of the conference. Do go through it, and towards the end of the landing page, there is an interest form, and fill it if you would like to be a participant to that conference. So with that, I would like to thank all of you once again for your time on a Wednesday morning, afternoon, evening, and being with us here today. So thank you, and have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.